People of Earth, we have come to upgrade your cosmic consciousness. DNA activation ready. In 3, 2, 1.
Hi, welcome to Q&A on Breakthrough Leadership. I'm Lou Quinto.
And I'm Craig Anderson.
Craig, how are you doing? Now that masks are off and vaccines in arms, have you gone shopping lately to not wear a mask?
I'm doing all the things, Lou. I'm going to the restaurants. I'm going to the stores. I got that vaccine and it was just me going strong. How about you? Are you still washing your hands and keeping your distance?
I am still washing my hands and keeping my distance. I think that's just good hygiene. But at the end of this episode, I have a brand new closing. So I'm going to keep you in suspense. I didn't tell you about that. But I'm excited because what's that?
Thanks for the heads up.
Oh yeah, no problem. Yeah. But I'm excited because I'm going to, at the end of this month, speak to a real live audience for the first time since March of 2020. And guess where it is?
Indianapolis.
No, it's not in my backyard. It's in Napa, California.
Oh, wow.
So my first venture into live performance again is in Napa, California for an association. It's the Associates Equipment Dealers. So they are located in Napa, and I'm doing 2 keynotes for their conference while I'm out there.
That's fantastic.
I'm excited.
I actually did my first live strategic planning meeting with a leadership team 2 weeks ago down in Texas.
Wow.
And it was funny because it was the first time that team had been together in person in over a year.
Seriously?
Yeah. So it was a great session, lots of energy, actually knocked out their 1-page plan in the session. It was fantastic.
People are looking at each other going, dude, you gained weight. You got old.
Yeah, this really aged you, buddy. Look at that extra 15 pounds. Woo.
No, it's the COVID-19.
COVID-19. And
so at least that's what I tell myself. So
there you go.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we have another reason to be excited. It is time for our quarterly mailbag. So the letters and the emails just keep coming in. So we must be doing something right.
Or we're leaving a lot of people confused with open questions. I guess we'll find out as we dig in today.
Yeah. No, I think these questions actually dig in further than what we covered in some of our episodes, because each of these, I went through and selected these 4, and each of them refers back to a previous podcast. So they want more. It's more, please.
Can I have some more?
Yeah, may I have some more, please? So anyway, let's go ahead and let's get this thing kicked off here with our very first email. And it is from Janice in Newport News, Virginia.
Oh.
Have you ever been to Newport News?
I don't think so.
It's a big naval area, naval base. Yeah. So I thought maybe because your son is in the Navy, but he's in California. But
he did spend a summer there at the base.
Okay, perfect. So anyway, Janice from Newport News writes, I listened to your recent podcast on accountability with Lynn Zettler, and I'm trying to implement accountability for a major training effort my team is going through. I want my team to actually use the techniques they learned. What suggestions do you have that I can use accountability in a post-training program? So literally, this is taking 2 of our podcasts that we did, recent podcasts, accountability and the post-learning. So Craig, why don't you kick it off for everybody?
Well, Janice, kudos to you for actually trying to make the training stick. That's something I think Lou and I both want to see happen, and it can be challenging. So I will give you 2 tips that I think will really help you get that accountability framework that you want. One, for the program that you're putting in, the training effort, and I think we touched this in our podcast, I really encourage you to get leaders through the program first. get them through, get them on board, and get a commitment from them that they're going to demonstrate those techniques for their employees. That's your first best way to get the buy-in, when they see their bosses actually doing the things that they had in the training. The second one, I've already lost, but I believe it was such a good answer, Lou. The first part, I got so excited, I lost the second part. The second part is really to build in some additional time after it. Revisit the material in a couple of weeks and do a check-in with people to say, how did it go? How are you doing using these techniques? I'd encourage even to do it in small groups, so they actually have to talk, and it's not 25 people with 3 people saying what they did. So that's how I would take a look at trying to get that moving forward. How about you, Lou?
Right. Yeah. No, I like what you said. It definitely has an impact. Get the managers in there and have that follow up. I always recommend that at a later date, if I've gone in and done some training, to come in and do 2 hours and just recap, review what we talked about. And in my particular area with critical thinking skills, when we're dealing with problem solving and decision making, I usually ask them to bring problems or decisions that they're working on. And then we select 1 or 2 of them. And then I coach them through that process, whether it's solving a problem or making a decision that helps them to do that. Now, if a company can't afford to bring me back in for an extra time, but I think we've learned a lot over COVID. We don't need to bring Lou in. We just pull them up on the Zoom and we'll get them there. But that is a good way to create. It's almost like having a support group where you're bringing the people back together shortly after the training. Is this way they haven't forgotten everything. You do a quick review and then you say, okay, let's put ourselves in a situation where we need to use what we've learned. So that this way, as you know, Craig, task training is so much more important than just having somebody lecture to you. So whenever I have the opportunity to have people do task training, and if they could do it with people that went through the program with them, or maybe if you ran a series of these programs with other people, have that check-in support group type of situation where they bring a live situation. If it's, let's say it's crucial conversations, let them bring to this particular session some situations they've had, obviously change the name to protect the guilty, and talk about how they handled it and what recommendations based on this training that we had, how should I have handled it differently? Okay, presentation skills. Bring people in if you've taken them through presentation skills, and bring them in and let them do a 10-minute presentation in front of other people that went through the program to give them some coaching advice on, hey, your eye contact was way off. You're standing in one place again. You're not moving. As I always tell people in training, and Craig, you've heard me say this before, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So create those situations for accountability where they will use the training that they learned, and those skills will become more part of them instead of just in a book on their bookshelf or in their filing cabinet that they forgot about. And why? Because it was a check the box activity.
There we go. So now I'm feeling like I should be walking around the stage as we're doing our session.
Yeah, no, not for podcast.
Not for this. Okay,
yeah.
Not for the podcast.
Yeah, not for the podcast.
Fair enough. Well, Janice, we hope that helps. If you have any follow-up questions, shoot them back into the mailbag. We'd love to talk to it.
Sure.
Yeah, talk to more about it for you. So our next question comes from Simone in Toronto, Canada. We're all over the world, Lou.
Yes,
Craig,
we are.
It's amazing. Craig and Lou, your episode on...
Whoa. Why do you get first billing?
Well, it's alphabetical.
Oh, okay.
On both sides, right? I mean, yeah, see? And, I think I'm the more charming, lovable one. So I think
absolutely. Yes, you're
Craig and Lou.
You're the Abbott to my Costello.
Trying to remember if that's good or not. Yeah. All right. Your episode on stepping in for a controversial leader hit home as I was promoted to replace a leader that was an authoritarian leader. And she created a lot of animosity amongst the members of the department and created an environment where everyone now works in their own silos. There is no collaboration or engagement. I've been in the role for 2 months and I'm having a hard time getting people to trust me. Help. What should I do? too, Lou.
Yeah, were there smoke signals with that? Help.
Oh, yeah. There was an exclamation point.
There wasn't that one explanation point. Okay, all right. Let me hit this one first. First of all, when it comes to trust, and you're coming into a tough situation, as Craig and I talked about in our podcast when we talked about you're coming into a leadership position and you are replacing a controversial leader. Obviously, there was significant damage done in this situation, Simone, where it wasn't just lack of engagement, but it's actually getting down to that trust level. And it's going to be just a human situation where if you do something to me where I lose trust, and Simone, you didn't know, you've done nothing, but it's that position that the people that are working for you have lost confidence in. And that is a very tough road to hoe. You can't do it by confronting the group. Trust is built on an individual basis. So Simone, what I would recommend that you do is, and it's going to take a little extra time, but I would get with your folks one-on-one and have some informal coaching sessions. Talk about the job. Don't say anything negative. Talk about why they like their job, what they're doing, that they see, where they see themselves in the next year or two, so that this way you're building that trust relationship from ground zero. That's the way you have to look at it. You can't look at the entire group and say, oh my gosh, I have to build trust with the entire group. No, it's on an individual person by person situation. So that's where I would start with recommending, how do I build that trust? And if anything, as Craig and I for 2 years now have said on this podcast, catch them doing something right. Because apparently with your predecessor, I'm assuming, it's an assumption, that she was catching, it was a she, right? Yes, that she was catching them doing things wrong and just beating them down. You need to start building them up. So if I were you, I would just, Craig, walk around the office every now and then, sit in the office when you get, if you're back into the office, and sit in a place where you normally wouldn't sit. Don't sit in your office, so that you can watch what's going on and you can start to hear conversations. Initially, they may be a little reluctant because you're in the room, but after a while, you're going to become just like a houseplant. They're not going to recognize you. So that's where I would start with that. Craig?
Yeah, no, that's all good stuff, Lou. And I would add a few things. I was in this situation where I wouldn't say it was an antagonistic or controversial leader, but kind of an absent leader. And I made a few mistakes out of the gate. One, when I went in and took over the office after I got the role, my back was to my door. And so what happens when you're a new boss? Everybody kind of walks by to see the new guy, right, the new person. And I never saw them. And so that was mistake one that I made. Mistake two that I made is I focused so much on my leadership team and building those relationships. I didn't make myself available to the larger team. So yes, my recommendations for you would kind of follow on a bit to Lou, but look for those kind of unconscious signals that you might be sending out that might continue that distrust. Make sure your door is open as much as you can have your door open. Have yourself facing a place where people can see you and you can make eye contact as people go by. And get out and meet the people, as Lou said. I know we all want to work hard, assuming we're back in the office, and we want to, sit in our office and do our work and eat our lunch because there's lots to do. Break yourself of that habit. Take yourself out into the common areas. Be accessible. Maybe as people are coming in the morning, be kind of out and about so you can make the greetings. And then really have conversations with people. Be open, realize that this is going to take time. People are going to have to take time to trust you, and it's probably going to take a lot longer than you want, but you're going to have to really focus on building those relationships individually and collectively, and really make sure you get to the bottom of things as they come up so you really have a good handle before you start making decisions.
Right.
So that's where I would go, Simone.
Yeah, was it you or was it someone we interviewed said that every now and then what they would do is they would go sit in the break room and do like expenses, things that didn't require a lot of focus. Was that you?
Yeah, that was something that I started to do once I realized the mistakes I was making, was just to get out there and do work that if I was interrupted, it wasn't going to throw me off.
Yeah.
So yeah, sit out there for that. And, when the bulk of your employees come in, just kind of be out there and say hello. That's, they want to understand who's a human, right? Before they can trust you, they have to know you're an actual human. So get out there, interact, and then get focused on the big issues.
Yeah.
Wow.
They need to know you're an actual human. No, you're a droid.
Well, we might question the humanity of the prior leader here. I don't
know. Yeah. So that AI is kicking in a lot early. Oh, look. We have a robot who's now our boss.
It's just a matter of time.
Right. All right. Well, Simone, we hope that answered your question. All right, Craig, let me take the third mailbag question that we have here. And this one happens to be from Grant in Boise, Idaho. Yeah, Boise, Idaho. So always wanted to get to Boise, Idaho. So anyway, he writes, great podcast, guys. Love that already. No exclamation point, though. I'm a little upset about that. So he could have just said, great podcast, guys, instead of exclamation point. But anyway, I listen to you each week when I walk my dogs. Quick question. My company is preparing to return to the office on a hybrid schedule. I'm thinking ahead. How do I ensure tasks and projects are being communicated consistently when everyone is not in the office at the same time?
Oh, so that's my person.
there was a long pause there,
That's
Craig. I'm sorry to hit you with that one.
No, that's a tough question. A good question, but a tough question. And, and this may be one of those areas where Lou and I differ a bit, is, good meetings that are focused and staying on top of these tasks and making sure that when they're tasked out, that everybody who needs to be in the room via Zoom or via in person is there for them. I'm not talking about 4-hour status update meetings that can be done with email, but I do think it's important to make sure you're communicating broadly and effectively. I also would encourage you at the times you're sending these out, and if you're going to have people kind of in different places, it may be good to use some of the technological solutions to get these out there in a public space so that everybody can see what's going on and can see at least kind of a red, yellow, green light approach so people know how the projects are advancing. But I think the key thing is think about transparency and where can I be transparent? Having meetings where everybody hears the same message, even if it's over Zoom, and then using one of the many platforms out there to stay on track of all the different things going on in the business and putting that in place so that your whole team can see what's going on. I think those are the two big things that you can do, because this is going to be a challenge for a lot of companies, because a lot of companies have kept it pretty loose because they're not sure what they're going to do yet. And so you don't know who's going to be in the office on what days. And that's a different topic of how to solve for that. But for this particular problem, until you resolve that, I think those are your two best ways. What do you think, Lou?
Right. No, I will reluctantly agree with you. So I want all of our listeners to know I am not fully endorsing, but you did mention meetings. And I believe you and I have had this conversation before. It may have been offline or it may have been part of a podcast where we were talking, I believe, about the state of remote work in 2021. And one of the things that I believe that I pointed out, and we really didn't dive into it, but companies weren't prepared to turn the switch and go total remote in 2020. My question has been, with all the reading I'm doing, are companies truly prepared to have the mass entrance of people back in the office? And if they're doing a hybrid, if they're going to be whatever situation it might be, is everybody prepared to do that? And I don't know if a lot of companies have planned to do that properly. I know that I read where Jamie Dimon from Chase literally said that as of July, everyone's coming to the office, doesn't care, but everyone has to be in the office. And I think he needs to listen to our Empathetic Leader podcast because that's really not taking that into consideration. But I think, Grant, to make a long story short, you are experiencing what I believe a lot of leaders are going to be experiencing in the next several months. And that is, how do I continue to keep up the productivity productivity that we had in the remote workforce when we've got people that may be overlapping. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, this group comes in. Tuesdays and Thursdays, this group comes in. And we've got a whole bunch of individuals that are overlapping. So I will agree, again, half-heartedly with Craig, you need to have those regular meetings, and those people who are at home, bring them in through whatever platform you're using for virtual meetings so that they are part of the meeting. The other thing too, and this is important in communication, don't ever say anything just one time and expect it to get through. Your question had to do was, how can I consistently keep everyone informed? You need to get sick and tired of repeating a message over and over and over again, because you're going to forget who you told it to, and someone that you didn't tell it to didn't hear it, and they're going to be lost. So you've got to make sure, create a list, a weekly list of communication subjects, or subject items, I should say, and make sure that you make that part of your weekly routine, that you communicate when you're with different groups, that you're communicating that same message over and over. Consistency is going to be the key to your problem here. So what do you think, Craig?
Well, I think by the time you get sick and tired of hearing yourself say something is about the time everybody starts hearing you. Well, it's really like 10 to 12 times. Yeah. How many times you have to say something before it really sinks in. And if you're talking to diverse groups in the organization, multiply that times that number of diverse groups, and that's how many times you're going to have to say that message. It's right. Important. And the other benefit to that is, aside from getting people on the same page, is it's comforting to people because they know we do have a plan, we are marching in this direction, and that consistency really builds confidence.
Right.
So that's where I would kind of touch on that.
Terrific.
All right. And our last question from Texas, from Sandra in Austin, Texas. Great interview with Croft Edwards. Does he live in Texas or Arizona?
No, he lives in New Mexico.
New Mexico. Sorry. So the whole Southwest question. Great interview with Croft Edwards. I purchased his book after hearing him on your podcast. I especially found the discussion of effective, ineffective, and missing conversations intriguing. I find myself avoiding talking with my manager that I now understand are missing conversations. He is intimidating and sometimes scoffs at some of my concerns. And so I don't bring up situations I find important, but I don't think he'll find important. What do you suggest I do to turn these missing conversations into effective conversations? Lou.
Yeah, that is a tough one, because it sounds to me, Sandra, that you've already got this complex. I'll call it a complex, and I mean that in the nicest way, that you are afraid to have conversations because of past performance, that when you've given information, the feedback has been negative to you. And so I would say that, one, you need to get over that a little bit. And the way to do that is to have more one-on-one conversations. And instead of, and again, I'm trying to imagine what the situation might be. It could be one situation where you are getting scoffed at because you're dumping a bucket of all these problems that you're seeing. And when he sees you coming, he may roll his eyes a little bit to himself and just sit there and nod his head and everything and go, oh, don't worry about it. Those aren't that bad. The other area could be that you're coming to them one at a time, but very frequently. And so it's like that person when we sit in a meeting, and the minute we start talking, they take the floor and they go on and on and on, and we all roll our eyes. Sandra, I'm not saying that's you, but I think you need to look at perhaps why is he scoffing at you? Now, one of the recommendations I'm going to give you to help, one, improve those missing conversations to become effective conversations, is sit down with them, talk about situations. But when you do, I want you to use a process. It's an acronym I'm going to give you that works very well in helping to really communicate the importance of a problem. The first thing you need to do is define what the problem is. And I'm going to say that is the P of my acronym. The I in the acronym PIR is you need to do your research once you have identified the problem, and you need to figure out what is the impact that that problem is having. Is it affecting just two people? Is it affecting an entire department? What impact is it having on productivity? What impact is it having on profitability? The bigger those impacts are, the bigger the concern is going to be when you bring it to your manager. And then the third part, and I'm going to give this an R, is you need to go to your manager with a resolution. What do you believe would be the best way to solve this problem? So next time you go and you want to avoid having that missing conversation, think PIR. Do your homework, identify the problem, identify the impact, and then come up with a suggestion or two of how that problem may be solved. And I guarantee you that your manager will stop scoffing and take you seriously, because the manager is going to realize that you aren't just coming, I have a problem. Because most managers know that when an employee walks in and says, I have a problem, that monkey on the employee's back already has 1 foot over on the manager's back. And all the manager has to do is say, I'll look into it. And that monkey has jumped on their back then. And you need to avoid the perception of that type of situation with your manager.
So monkeys and acronyms. So yeah, I think Lou's correct. If you go through all that effort, one, you're going to find a change in the manager's behavior. Hopefully, it may take a few tries, but that may change the behavior. If it doesn't change the behavior, I take you back to our other podcast where we talked about how 53% of employees are looking to find a new job after COVID has kind of gone its way. So, but I think you have to make a determination. Is there a role for you in this dysfunctional relationship you have with your manager? Fix the pieces that you can fix by trying to, as Lou talked about, with the problem and the resolution. And then if that still doesn't improve it and you still find that they're scoffing, then I think you have to have a real conversation with yourself to say, is this an environment in which I can succeed and achieve my personal goals, or do I have to find a different environment? In all seriousness, it's not, we're definitely in an environment right now as we're recording this podcast that is very employee beneficial, right? There are more jobs than there are people right now. So it may be a great opportunity for you to make that move. That's what we talked about in that last podcast. So make the effort to fix. If nothing else, it's going to teach you a good set of skills for your long-term career. And then if it still continues to be kind of a dysfunctional, toxic situation, then I think you have to have a serious conversation with yourself about maybe I need to be looking for another opportunity. So that's what I would add on to what.
Yeah, not to steal any thunder from Croft, or maybe we're messing up his definition of effective, ineffective, or missing. But the missing conversation is you're not having that conversation. And so what's happening is there's baggage that you're carrying because you're not having those conversations. And that is the essence of a missing conversation. You need to unpack those bags and you need to start having conversations and hopefully turning them into the effective conversations that Croft addressed in his book and also when we interviewed him on the podcast. So, Sandra, we hope that helps you.
Excellent. All right, Lou, what are your big takeaways from our mailbag today?
Well, my key takeaway is our mailbag questions are getting harder. As I said, it's almost like we're digging down deeper into some of the podcasts that we've had. Maybe we're not spending enough time on those subjects, or they've just piqued enough interest where people are diving in deeper. So my key takeaway is I think we're on the right track in teaching people about leadership and helping them develop.
All right. Well, my key takeaway is I'm still just thrilled to death that we get mail. I think what I would also add is it shows the real value of some of our interviews that we're doing, because we're really bringing people who can specifically address some of the challenges that everybody is facing in their day-to-day interactions. So, good questions, tough questions. I was getting ready for this episode. Man, these are hard. Yeah. I like it better when we just make stuff up off our own head. Now we have to answer these deep questions. So that is it for this week's episode of Q&A on Breakthrough Leadership. If you liked what you heard today, give us a like, subscribe so you don't miss any episodes coming up in the future. And
send us emails.
Send us emails and share these episodes with your friends, because we want to get the word out to us. Our goal is really to help leaders be as successful as possible. And now that many of you are back in the car and going to work every day, or perhaps walking your dogs, as our one email noted, it's a great time to listen to our podcast version. We're available on all major podcasting platforms. So there's lots of ways for you to experience Q&A on breakthrough leadership. This is going to be episode 86, I think. So there's lots of great content. I strongly encourage you, if you watch the early episodes, do those on podcast. I was having a real issue with long hair back then. I don't recommend watching this on video. So until next time, I'm Craig Anderson.
And keep learning to be the best leader you can be. I'm Lou Quinto.
Thanks, everybody.